Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make loot tables. I'm going to be making a loot table for this battery model, and instead of dropping the blocks, it's going to drop the items that craft it. And without wasting any much time, I'm gonna start coding. So back in VS Code, we're gonna create a folder in the behavior pack called loot tables. And we'll create another folder called blocks to keep all our block loot tables, and create the file itself, blockmodel.json. And before I start making this blocks loot table, I need to note something. First, I'm going to be teaching you guys the basic of how to create a loot table. There are more advanced ways of creating a loot table. So for now, I'm just going to show you guys the basics, and later on I'm going to explain more about what each property does. But for the basic loot table, there are three main properties that you always use, which are pools, rows, and entries, and I'm going to explain while I type. So we'll first encapsulate it in curly brace, and we'll define the pools. And now what a pool is, as you can see from the intelligence, is basically just a list. It's a collection of all the items that your loot table will drop. It stores pool items, which are just objects of what is going to drop once the game runs. So we'll create 3 pool items because you use 3 items to craft this block, which are the redstone dust, the iron ingots, and the black concrete. So for the first pool item, we'll first add the rows. Now what a row is the number of times this pool item is going to run. So in the case of you having, like for example, a feather, in the case of a chicken, you can drop 2 feathers, you can drop 1 feather. In that case, it runs once or twice, and in the rows you can have a random value for it to run. But in our case, we want it to run only once and drop exactly that amount. So the rows is going to be 1, fixed as 1. So but if you want to add a random value, instead you can assign it to a brackets, and you can add the min and max for a random value. So change it back to 1. After setting the rows for the number of times to run, you set the entries. The entries are what this pool item can drop. So create our entry for this pool item, and the first property we'll fill is the name, and the name is just the ID of the item. In our case, the first item we're dropping is the black concrete. The next property that we'll add is the type. You can change it to either an item, which drops an item. You can drop an empty entry, meaning it doesn't drop anything, and this is useful for chances where it doesn't drop an item. And you can also change the type to a loot table. This allows you to make nested loot tables, which drops another loot table. You can either make it inline, or you can put the part of the loot table within it. And according to our recipe from the last episode, it's going to drop a count of 6. And as you can see, this property is not allowed. There's an issue with this property right now, that it doesn't actually drop the value you fix to it. Is capped at 1. So if you really want to set the count of the item, you use what you call a function. Functions just modify the entry, basically the item. And for our case, we're using the set count function, which is going to set the number of items to drop. So open the functions, and function is the list of functions. So we want to create one function, which is a function, and the name is setCount. And the count is going to be 6. And this is one item of the recipe done, and to actually do the rest, we'll just copy and paste the code actually. So for the next item is the iron ingot, and you need 2. We're crafting 2. We use 2 to craft the block model, so set the count to 2, while the last item is the redstone dust, and the count is 1. And like that, the actual loot table is done. And the one last thing to do before this loot table can actually be registered is in the actual battery model JSON, we need to assign the loot that is going to drop once it breaks, and you do that with the loot component, which is the path to the loot, and it's relative to this folder, so you don't need to put an absolute path. All you need to do is type loot tables slash, and you add the path itself slash blocks slash block model.json with the extension included. And like that will work. If you actually click this part, it will take you to the actual loot table, so that is a helpful check to know that you are assigning the right loot. If you head back into the game right now and you try to break the block, you can see that it actually drops the loot. And if you are wondering why I added 3 different pull items rather than just creating one and setting the rows to like 3 and adding different items, is because the rows is the number of times the entries is going to run, and the entries picks at random. It's not going to run for each item, so it won't, rather than dropping 6 concrete and 2 iron ingots, it can drop like 12 if it's running twice or so. So you need to set 3 items for each. If you want a fixed number of items to drop, you set that specific number of pull items. The rows and the entries, if you want dynamic random loots. There are other properties in the loot tables, like the conditions. Like in the pull item, for each pull item you can add conditions, like in case of what item you are holding, the game mode. There are stuff like bonus rules for luck, and there are way more properties to use, but this is the 3 properties that we use the most, which are the pulls, the rows, and the entries. I know this video is short, and I'm glad it is. I hope you guys love the video. If you want more of it, please tell me in the comments if you want more explanation. If you guys love the videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.